Afternoon, everyone. For those of you who are here this morning for our advisory group meeting, welcome back. For those of you who are part of that meeting, excuse me, my mic was off. Welcome to this meeting, which is our regulatory workshop on proposed regulations relating to storage and towing fees for automotive repair dealers. My name is Patrick DeRay, Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. I'm happy to facilitate this workshop. This is the second of two workshops so far on this proposed regulation package. We have a presentation that will take not very long, probably 10, 15 minutes at most. Not even that, 5 minutes. He's shaking his head. 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. Well, I was going to try and have you expand on some of those bullet points rather than read them directly, but we will open it up for comment and questions and suggestions from the entire audience. So that's how we go about doing these regulatory workshops. As I said, our first workshop was in April of this year, following our bar advisory group meeting on in April. It was designed to facilitate input on an initial draft that has not too many changes, but we heard a lot of good comments at that workshop in April, and went back to the drawing board and made some modifications to the regulatory text, which have been through our legal counsel. It's not a final product just yet. We certainly reserve the right to make additional changes based on additional comments that we received from our legal counsel review. But they did give us some really good feedback and direction to go forward with and allow us to hold today's workshop. So we're happy with that development. This will lead us into, at some point, when we finalize in our minds the package, we'll file the regulations after we get all of our approvals that we need to go through outside of the legal office, that go through the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. It goes over to our agency, and then ultimately they'll get filed with the state agency that handles all regulations, and that's the Office of Administrative Law, at which point we'll open it up for an official or formal public comment period that's on the record, so to speak, where the Bureau has to address all of those public comments. That lasts for 45 days. We'll finish the package off and then file it back with OAL with all of the supporting documentation, and hopefully have an adoption of the regulations. I would say that will be at least another year away. So where we are right now is still in the development stage, very early on in the process. So this is designed to solicit input from everyone at this workshop and help us make the best product possible going forward. Any questions before we move forward? We do have some advisory group members who have stayed from the meeting held earlier today. So when calling upon folks to respond to the presentation or the proposed regulations, which are on the front table, I'll probably start with a few of the advisory group members because they've been intimately involved in helping us draft and getting to this point. So I want to get their initial feedback and comments, but certainly we'll open it up to anyone in the room and anyone on our WebEx. This is a kind of a hybrid meeting of both an in-person experience as well as a WebEx virtual platform that we use for those who can't physically join us and be here in the room with us today. So it allows for greater participation, which we always want in these workshops. And then lastly, we are webcast. It's a webcast, so there'll be a recording. If you missed something or didn't think of something, you'll have the opportunity to review the recording as early as next week. We'll have that up on our website. The individuals responsible for that, Cesar Victoria, yes, great job with the webcast. Our moderator, Ann Fisher, you can't see her, but she's there. You'll hear her voice. I'll call on her to open it up for public comments on the WebEx, and then co-moderator and facilitator of everything that led to getting this meeting scheduled, as well as the meeting earlier today, Zach Richardson from our executive office at the Bureau's headquarters. And I think that does it for the intros and welcome on my part. We will now turn it over for a 3 to 5 minute presentation.
Well, now that you've said most of it.
Now it's down to 1 minute. We're going to get a presentation from Matthew Gibson, who is in our front office at the Bureau's headquarters. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Pat. So this is our second workshop to discuss the proposed storage and towing fee regulations. The proposed regulations are drafted in accordance with authorization provided by Assembly Bill 1263, which authorizes the Bureau to clarify existing statutes that govern storage and towing fees. Our PowerPoint today is 5 slides and will cover the concepts that the Bureau intends to include in the proposed storage and towing fees for automotive repair dealer regulations. The proposed text is a rough draft, which is intended to solicit input, and we recognize that there will be changes based on our discussion today, as well as internal discussions at DCA and BAR. So going to the first slide. Purpose of the regulations, again, is to clarify BAR's authority to address storage fee issues as provided for by Assembly Bill 1263. Codify BAR's guidance to the automotive repair industry regarding storage fees, and bring together under one unified regulation existing laws governing storage fees in the Business Professions Code, Civil Code, and Vehicle Code. Next slide. So the proposed regulations would create a new subdivision C in California Code of Regulations 3351.2 that would require automotive repair dealers that charge storage fees resulting from an accident or a theft recovery to report their daily storage rate to BAR for the renewal period of the ARD registration. It also would provide direction on the factors for ARDs to consider when establishing their daily storage rates. Next slide. It would create a new California Code of Regulations 3351.8.1 that will clarify that storage fees may be assessed prior to any authorized repairs when an ARD is unable to contact the customer or deems a vehicle unrepairable. It will provide consumer and third-party payer access to a stored vehicle. It would require ARDs to accept multiple payment methods. It would require vehicle storage at the ARD's business and specify what an ARD must do when storing the vehicle at another location, and create a process for BAR to post average daily storage rates for a given locale. Next slide. We create a new California Code of Regulations 3351.8.2 related to storage fees in a repair transaction that will clarify that storage fees cannot be assessed while a vehicle is undergoing repairs, establish what an ARD must do to charge storage fees after the completion of repairs, require storage fees resulting from an accident or a theft recovery to be charged in accordance with Vehicle Code Section 22524.5, require additional storage fee notifications when providing a teardown estimate, and require an itemized invoice of storage fees when charged. Next slide. And it would create a new California Code of Regulation 3351.9 for issues related to storage fees when there are no repairs performed. That would require any towing and storage fees resulting from an accident or a theft recovery to be charged in accordance with Vehicle Code Section 22524.5. Require an itemized invoice of towing fees when charged. Require ARDs that do not directly provide towing to post the require ARDs that directly provide towing to post the towing and storage fee access notice required by Vehicle Code Section 22651.07, and require ARDs that contract for towing services provide the notice upon request. Last slide. And that's the presentation. All right, that's what smooth.
To begin, so we open it up for some comments. I'll start here on the dais with advisory group members who stay on the board today. Jack, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, Jack Molodanoff on behalf of the California Auto Body Association. I do. First, let me thank you for, the presentation and working on the regulations. And I know since the last workshop. Changes have been made. Appreciate that. And there's some additional changes or that have been added. And I have some comments, concerns, or suggestions, and I like to go through those. But I think it's important so the audience can follow if we had, because I'm going to go through the actual language rather than presentation. So I don't know if we can pop the presentation, I mean, the actual language up.
Text
so
you've
people-
got, or
the
the
text.
reg text? Good.
Yeah, so people can follow, so we know what we're talking about. I think that would be easier.
Agreed.
I agree.
Come on, Zach. I trust on you. Yeah, right. 8 minutes, Jack, 8 minutes. Okay.
Mm. Can you feel the eyes of the Zach?
I think it was a topic.
Dan's working on it.
Okay.
I have some questions. that-
Sure, well, let's do
Yeah.
that. Why don't we
Yeah.
use this?
So,
time? Dave
slide,
Kusa?
thank you. Yeah, Dave Kusa, Automotive Service Council of California. Matt, slide 3. What if someone changes their rate before the next reporting period?
So, specific to that, it's in the regulation text. It would be that, we would not want them to change their storage rate after they report it to us on the period of renewal.
Okay.
So for 12 months, we would expect that they would stay the same.
Okay, so I think that's unreasonable. Because things change in 12 months, my insurance rates, my rent, things like that, labor rates, so on and so forth.
I think that, in line with our earlier conversation related to, toxic waste,
Mhm.
our expectation would be that they would analyze
Oh, of course,
how
yeah.
much
yeah.
they would expect to have cost them to store a vehicle and then project that forward a year and give us that rate and then do it again on the next renewal period.
Okay. Require automobile repair dealers that charge storage fees resulting from accident or theft recovery. And I think it's in the regulation a little bit more specific than that. I'm a auto repair. I don't do collision. I don't do towing. I don't normally charge storage. Does this relate to me in any fashion whatsoever?
If you do not charge storage as a result of performing repairs on, well, actually just accident or theft recovery, so repair, yeah, no.
Okay. I'm going now. Thank you.
All good.
I do want to take note of your first comment and the ability to, the regulation that locks it in for a year. You know, it was just a way for us to capture it upon the renewal cycle for each ARD. But I think, you know, getting back to the comment, I mean, projecting forward of a storage rate that's not reflective of the costs to store the vehicle today, that's kind of getting outside of what we talked about earlier today. It feels charging for only what it costs you. So,
Toxic waste.
well, yeah, but in this case, storage and trying to build a storage rate for the entire year when your rate isn't reflective now, but you're trying to project a year from now. So I want to take a second look at that. And I mean, I take that to heart that you know, the first word out of your mouth was that's unreasonable. And I don't.
That might have been a strong word.
No, but I don't have any objections to calling what you feel it is and taking a second look at it. And maybe there's a way for us to, what we didn't want to have is, you know, the two, my rate today is this and tomorrow it's that. And then and it's just like trying to hit a moving target. And that would be very hard for us in trying to establish a rate that's comparable as the law reads, comparable to a specific geographic locale. There's some words to that effect. So I do want to take another look at it. I'm not sold on. I'll take blame for it. It was originally my idea because I thought this is, you know, the perfect opportunity to capture that upon renewal of the registration. But we do have ways for you to update your registration information that doesn't require you to go back and get a new license, your address and think, and or
Educational certification?
educational certifications, other things that are fluid, that does not impact, the license at all. So maybe we can look at it and maybe build, something a little more flexible to accommodate that concern.
And I'm going to make sure I was answering the right, what you asked me. The part about reporting, are you asking if the part about reporting a daily storage rate, does that apply to you if you do not?
Right.
Yeah, that part.
So that wouldn't apply to
That
me.
part
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah, okay. As far as, what I would charge, I suspect, not obviously, I suspect that I would still have to, even though I'm not a body shop or, storage facility, I'm still have to conform to the rest of these regulations.
Yeah,
Okay.
and parts of them are, we have like a.
Well, yeah, some are very specific. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, the tow stuff, clearly, right? Yeah. I don't tow vehicles, so.
There are some general requirements.
Yeah.
In the 3351.8.1.
I guess the overarching question would be, just because I'm not a collision shop, doesn't mean none of this I would fall under none of these regulations, right? I follow almost all of them, just like any other ARD would, other than the fact that I'm not necessarily going to report to you what my storage rate is because I have no idea.
You wouldn't, so 3351.2 is not going to apply if you're
Yeah.
not performing.
Yeah, but the only time I ever threaten anybody with storage fees is to entice them to come get their car, right? And it generally works, and then we just don't charge them the storage, so
Okay.
it's safe.
Oh, Zach found him.
Zach's up. I will defer to Jack if that's okay with Pat.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just scroll up to that, or scroll down to C. And I think I'd like to take issue with what you just said.
C.
C, yeah. So it's 3351.2.
3351.2.
Yeah, 3351.2
Can you
C.
scroll?
The presenter can scroll up and down on each page or forward through to the next page.
There it goes. Okay.
Scroll
Yeah.
to C, sub C.
C.
There it is.
There we go. There we go. We're getting there.
Pull it up a little.
Oh, okay, that's good.
There we
Let's
go.
stay right there. So this is the section that Dave, you were talking about where it says an ARD. It doesn't say collision, by the way. It says an ARD. That's you, okay? It says who performs repairs as a result of an accident or theft recovery shall report to the Bureau on an annual basis. So when I read that, I thought, well, wait a minute here. You got a car that has a stolen catalytic converter. A car's moved and it's towed to your shop and you're going to repair it, right? You're going to replace the catalytic converter. So it's a theft recovery. I don't know. I think it may apply to him. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, he said no, but this is not an act. This is I'm just throwing out an example, catalytic, converter theft, and the car is towed. So Dave's shop can fix it. So I don't know, maybe he
Yes,
does
and
have
to be clear on
report.
that, Jack, we do occasionally get a theft recovery where, the
Right.
steering column's broken, the door's broken, things like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
that was because you said affirmatively, no, it wouldn't apply, but I don't know if that's accurate, Matt, after I'm reading the language. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Fair enough. I guess his daily storage rate would be 0, right?
Oh, until I do.
Well,
I always say because he has to report the daily storage rate, right? So
That
their
goes to
daily
the-
storage rate.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, I understand, yeah.
yeah, and that goes to this, that goes to the second part of that. So once you report, it says ARDs shall determine the daily storage rate based upon tangible factors such as the
Can
following.
you scroll up?
And then, yeah, you go to the second page. So this is a shall, so I want to, remind you because we don't want to go back to the page.
Oops.
So if you go to the second page. Yeah, it's anticipation with that.
And one way.
I'm making yours because you're controlling it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna hear all about this tomorrow, aren't I?
Laptop here.
How many
Okay, here we go.
laptops can you put in a chair?
We get him a table.
What's that?
You can send it to Ann and then she can help you with that. All right, where do you want to be?
Oh,
Yeah.
Top
Is that it?
Two.
Yeah, yeah, it's A through E, so just a little further up. So these were the factors. These are the,
Yeah.
ARD shall determine the daily storage rates based on these tangible factors. And it goes through these factors that they have to determine the value of the storage space
Mhm.
as determined by revenue potential, whether the storage area is inside an enclosed building, further labor costs for the staff, operating costs such as supplies, utilities, payroll. And he says, any other actual and direct costs associated with the storage of the vehicle. I think these are good, ideas,
Mhm.
but this implies that they have to do this. It's a shall. And what I guess my point is that there are other ways to determine what you should charge for your storage rate. For example, if I'm starting a new facility in an area, I probably call 6, 7 shop, what do you charge there? And they'll give me a range, right? What's the market here? And I'll probably, figure out, the market, what I want to charge. Based on this, I can't do that, right? Is that the way I
Well,
read this?
I think A through E are suggestions about factors that can be used to make a determination. They shall determine the daily storage rates based upon tangible factors. And then it says such as.
Couldn't it be fixed and just say, instead of shall, just say may? Why can't we just say may? I mean, they're good ideas, but
I think that's
it shouldn't be locked in.
okay.
Oh, no, it's a suggestion.
Fair enough.
And here's the other concern.
I don't-
So you have a BAR official comes out on a complaint, right? And they come up and they say, oh, your storage rate is, I don't know, I'm throwing out a number, $150 a day. Okay, so just say, for example, and they say, we want to see how you came up with this. We want to see this documentation. That would be a concern because then the shop would have to document how they came up with their $150 a day. Am I reading too much into this?
Well, I
because it's-
think that we are allowing them to, as long as they use tangible factors to make this determination, independent of whether they're the A through E or not, then that would be what we're trying to get them to do, is try to determine the actual value of that space where that car is being stored, as opposed to just pulling it out of thin air.
Yeah, well, like I said, the market, you can check the market. If I check with 6 shops in the area and the locale, and they're charging anywhere between 140, 160, 170 bucks, and I come up with 150, what's wrong with that? I mean, honestly, what's wrong with that? That's a market, right? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think the shop should be able to do that. And I think the factors are good ideas, but I don't think they should be required. I think there should be a may. That's my point. I don't
Okay.
want to beat it to death, but anyway. Number 2, or number 3 there, this is where I think, and I don't want to beat it to death again, but this is what Dave had raised. If you scroll down a little further on this screen, yeah, 3, it says the storage rate, reported shall
Yeah.
remain. That's being locked in, and, the world can change. We've had COVID, things can change in a year. And I do think, and I think it was, I appreciate your comment, Pat, about we can change things in midstream. I mean, if you're going to update it, you have to update it. You have to provide the BAR with something. I don't think that's a big deal, but I don't think they should be locked in for a year. Things change.
Let me
The
ask
world
you-
can change.
Let me ask you something. What if we ask them to report what they charged in the prior 12 months?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the prior 12 months, isn't that, I guess you're asking them what they're charging in that particular date, right?
Essentially, that was the amount you were charging.
Well,
prior
and
12 months.
okay, except, and this kind of goes back to the, if I'm mandated to report, I'm going to report 0. Well, somewhere it's talking about the average of certain, what I think it's somewhere in here with, the locale, right, is some certain number of shops within a certain way. And we're talking about averaging. Well, if it's 10 shops and 9 of them report 0, it's going to lower that average way, way down.
Yeah, no, that's a
Right.
good point.
Yeah.
Why-
And that, then I kind of lost my train of thought with what Jack was saying that, you know, again, right, that average, right, is, if I'm going to go in and look at the website and say, okay, the average of these guys is $150. Okay, I'm going to charge $150 because that's average. Well, I'm relying on them knowing what they're talking about too, right? So, you know, if I go through the exercise as described and I come up with, well, $250 is the real number, but the average is 150. Well, I don't know what the highest guy is because I want to be the highest guy plus $1 because I'm just that competitive. So, you know, I want to see what everybody's charging if it's going to be mandated report. And if I don't charge storage, I should be, you know, not report, right? Because 0 is going to kill the average.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
0 would kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's scroll down a little bit further to C, 3351.81C. Yeah, so this one is probably the most controversial one, I think, because you've introduced this idea of average daily storage rate. Because the BAR says here, utilizing the daily storage rates reported, the Bureau shall create a tool on its website to enable the public, third-party payers, and other stakeholders to identify an average daily storage rate for a locale. I can tell you, I know that section, the vehicle code section, the 22.524.5, it never talks about average daily storage rate. It talks about reasonableness and unreasonableness, right? I mean, that's what, you know, so what's reasonable, what's unreasonable. And now you've interjected this idea of average daily storage rate, which doesn't appear anywhere in that vehicle code section. And I always thought the idea here was that you were going to capture primarily collision repair, but you know, these rates, they were going to be posted and then you'd have a range, right? I mean, you'd have a range. I'll throw some numbers out. So let's put this in context, but you know, $100, you know, or 125 and 150. So you have, you know, $140, there's a range. Now you're actually calculating an average, somehow identify an average daily storage rate. And so it got me thinking, what's the average? Is it a mean, an average? And if you are above the average, does that mean it's unreasonable? You know, if someone charges more than the average, is that considered unreasonable? So I don't know why this is a lot of brain damage here. I think this should be very simple, right? You collect collect the rates and put them on the website and let whoever's using them, you know, determine if you're within that range. Maybe that's reasonable. You know what I'm saying? If it's way outside the range, maybe it's unreasonable. But this average daily storage rate, I think, is problematic. And I just wanted to raise that because
Well, let me ask, what if it gave you the low, the high, and then the average?
who's going to calculate that average?
The average would just be calculated by the system that's collecting the information.
Well,
It's going to be an average of all the other, it'll separate the high, it'll separate out the low and average of the ones in between.
what I'm concerned about is once you have an average, if someone is above the average, is that considered unreasonable?
I'm pretty sure we have a section in here about the fact that it's not
Well,
unreasonable
I think that's
necessarily.
Can I ask a question? Is
Oh.
that out of order?
You'll have your opportunity. I mean,
Yeah, we'll get to you. Just let's continue the thought here.
yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to, you know, again, I thought the concept and the idea was having a range of rates, collecting these, so everyone can see, right? It's very transparent. And then you can kind of determine, you know, whoever's looking at these rates to see what, you know, they can determine that rather than pigeonholing someone. I'm above the average, like, you know, Dave said, I'm $1 above the average. Does that mean it's unreasonable? And it's not clear here. So let me move.
I did think there was a provision in here that is modeled after the vehicle code 22524.5, which says what's it?
Yeah.
Something about it's not otherwise unreasonable.
And they're charging the vehicle storage. Oops, that's not it.
There is a provision
There's-
in there that accounts for this. You don't have to be right on the average.
Yeah,
No.
you change that from the actual statute, because the statute 22.524.5
Yeah.
says the storage rate and fee shall also be deemed reasonable if it's comparable to storage related rates and fees charged by other facilities in the same locale. This does not preclude the rate or fee
There
that
it
is
is.
higher or lower if it is otherwise reasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about average. It talks about reasonable versus unreasonable. I mean, frankly, I think everywhere it says average rate, it should say reasonable, right? That's what I think it should say. It's consistent with the statute. Otherwise, you're changing the statute here.
I think that the desire to do this isn't based on 22524.5 as much as it's based on Labor Aid Hero. And the fact that this is already occurring in the private sector, and I think we could do a much better job if we got this information from everybody and put it out there.
Well, I'm just raising the issue about the range. I think having a range of rates rather than coming up, I'm just concerned, again, I don't want to keep on repeating myself,
Yeah.
but the average, I'm just concerned someone's above the average and I can see a third party payer say, oh, that's unreasonable. You're above the average. Well, that's not, I can see some issues with that. Let me move on. The next page, page 3. How we doing there, Zach?
Hang in there, bud.
Okay, I'm with you, man. Okay. Go to E on the bottom there, E. I don't want to beat it right there. I don't want to beat this to death, but the statute, the vehicle code does not refer to bank drafts. The last, bank draft is not in vehicle code section 22651.07 C5. And I'm just wondering, I don't even know. I don't think I've ever seen a bank draft, but do a lot of customers pay by bank draft? Is that why you're including it in there?
Not at all. I included it because it's in another subdivision of 22651.07. I think it's G, but I'm not exactly sure. It's later on in
Okay,
that.
okay.
Otherwise, I don't even use that term.
So I don't want to be told how I get paid at all. I mean, it's if again, right, main reason I'm threatened storage is because I want them to come get their car. A lot of times they can't come get their car because they don't have money. I don't want their check, right? I want cash on the barrelhead.
That's fair, but this isn't existing law.
Bummer. I'm gonna write a strong email.
If we scroll down a little bit, we touched on repair. Let's see, 3351.82. Let's see, I guess go to the next page. Sorry, yeah, page 4, I think. Yeah, page 4. See, so now we're talking about this section deals with, stay there, Zach, a repair transaction. So and then it says when an ARD performs repairs as a result of an accident or theft recovery and charges for vehicle storage, the following shall apply. I guess I was having trouble with performing repairs because that's a process, right? The ARD intends to perform repairs, right? They're going to do an estimate or a tear down. There's authorization. The car may not be repaired, right? Because they'll go through the process. The customer says, it's too much money. I don't want to pay for it, or, it's a total loss. That's not clear here. Is there any way we can clarify, what you mean by repair? Because it just seems like the car has to get repaired, and it may not get repaired, but there's work done, there's service done. Does that make sense?
Sort of saying,
Well, it says when an ARD performs, I think it should say when an ARD intends to perform repairs. That's because that's really the intent, right? They're in the process.
fair enough. The definition of repair is pretty broad and includes the diagnosis and repair of malfunction of motor vehicles and on and on, but
I agree with you.
Okay.
Same. Can we define that or somehow say that somewhere? Because it doesn't say that, and it is a little confusing. Could we put a definition in there under repairs? But because it is broad. Can we say repairs includes like diagnosis, tear down, estimate, that sort of thing?
but automotive, it's defined in like the 3303 section.
Is it in there?
Automotive repair, yeah, the repair of motor vehicles, yeah.
I'll check that out.
And yeah.
If it is, then it's not an issue, but I just want to make sure, because when I was looking at this, I thought, let's make sure, because repairs is a process. Okay, thanks. Scrolling down a little further, number 4 on there, we talked about that, about the average, again, daily rate. I think it should say,
Oh, that's
should talk about, that's
storage fees and rates that are higher or lower than the average daily rate as
There you go.
specified.
Right,
Shall
that's
be
where the-
permitted if determined reasonable.
right.
Okay.
And that's the section, but the vehicle code talks about reasonableness, whether it's reasonable or not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And you've added in average daily rate. Let me continue. Let me continue here. Repairs, let's see. Let's go to the next page, 3351.9. This is page 5.
Mhm.
3351.9. This is the section talking about no repair transaction. Zach, I think we need to go further down here. There we are. Yeah. So no repair transaction, right? And I have to tell you, I mean, body shops, legitimate body shops, okay, that actually repair cars, right? Not guys that have ARD and they're just a storage facility. The cars that get towed into an auto body facility are consensual. They just don't show up there. They're not, from the police, they don't show up. Someone wants the car to get repaired. They've sent it there. I would say 99% of the time they're consensual. They're consensual. And so the intent there is to repair the vehicle, right? They're going to have to do, and here you're saying no repair transaction. I mean, I would have to think this would not apply to any ARDs because they're intending to repair the vehicle. Their intent is to either do a tear down, an estimate of something, right? I mean,
Well, unless they have looked at the car and the ball of metal and they know that they won't repair it.
but what you're doing here, you're changing the market. You know that, right? You're going to change the market here because the way this reads, it says if it comes in, it's a ball of metal, right? Okay. And you don't touch it, you're only going to be able to charge your capped at CHP rates, right? What do you think the auto body industry is going to do? Every car that comes in, they're going to document it. They're going to do a tear down or do an estimate. They're going to do something, right? I mean, they're going to have to. They're going to say, well, we want to get paid our, what the locale is. You're changing the market by doing this. I just wanted to point this out. Maybe unintended consequences, but, and I know the BAR encourages tear downs. I know your policy is do tear downs. And I think what you're going to have more tear downs, even in cars where maybe it's obvious, but I do think, now the shops are going to be in a position where they're going to have to document this with a tear down of some kind. Okay. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
And finally, let me just leave off here. I raised this last time, but the section, the 1260, AB 1263, the section that provided the authority here specifically said that you may adopt these regulations, and they do reference the insurance regulations. And I know I suggested last time to have a reference in the regulations here that refer to the Fair Claim Settlement Practices regulations, the ones that talk about, 6 days, that sort of thing. I didn't see it in here. I do think it's important to reference it, even though, because this is going to be, these regulations are going to apply to, everyone's going to be looking at consumers, stakeholders, insurance companies, shops, right? And I think it's important to have some reference. You have the statutory authority. I mean, you could say something as simple as, notwithstanding these sections, towing and storage fees are subject to the Fair Claim Settlement Practice regulations, X, Y, and Z. So, it's 2695.8 K and 2695.8 EB C D. But I do think there should be some reference here. I don't know what the resistance is. I mean, it's not changing anything. I think it really lays everything in one place, so everyone can understand and have a good understanding of what the laws are. And maybe the insurance companies need to know what the law is, and and the shops as well. So I think a reference, I don't see any downside to it, but anyway, I would, suggest a reference to the settlement practices, which is consistent with the statute. So those are my comments.
I have
Thank you, Jack.
one clarifying question on that. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you, Jack.
And then I'll shut up. On the payment, the subsection E,
Which,
um,
Well, the methods of payment.
method of payment.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So does that apply only to the storage fee or to the entire transaction if I charge storage?
Pay your charge storage fee. Shall accept the following terms of payment. I'm gonna have to, I don't have a good answer for you right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
apologize.
And just the second part of that, I'm going to assume if I don't charge storage, then this doesn't apply at all.
Well, yes, because it doesn't apply to you. That's
Right.
why you're-
Yeah.
if
Okay.
You're not charging storage fees.
Okay. Yeah. So if we could, yeah, just clarity on if it's just
I
for the
think
storage
that,
for the
uh,
entire transaction.
This situation would arise most commonly when a vehicle is being held, probably after it's been deemed a total loss, probably after repairs have been initiated and there's thousands of dollars in
Right.
unpaid repairs. And so it would apply not only to whatever storage fees were assessed, if they were collected storage fees, but also the amount of repair work that was.
Yeah.
actually
The
performed.
entire.
It'd be whatever
entire
it takes to
invoice.
get the vehicle sprung out of the shop.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Nothing?
Oh, come on. No, fair. That's all right.
He's a good observer at this time. All right, let's open it up for some public comment. You had a question.
Might need
Yeah,
another chair.
bring them up to the, yeah, please come forward because we're recording all of this. So if you could come forward, state your name and shop or organization, whoever you are affiliated with, if any. Welcome.
I'm going to be a little scared. I'm not used to this. My name is Gary Hernandez. I own Martinez Auto Body in Martinez, California. Just a couple of quick notes. You were referring to average. And I'm hoping I get this term right, but reverse analytics. If you're below the average, nobody says anything to you. If you're above the average, you're above the average, you need to come to the average. What does that do? It lowers the average. Basic economics. So we're working against a business. Now remember, a person like myself, I'm not a storage facility. I didn't apply to the California Highway Patrol to tow and store vehicles. My business has to make a different presentation to the public, as yours does. Therefore, the economics of my business are a little bit different than a storage facility. You go into and I don't mean to be demeaning because we're all businessmen, but you go into a gravel lot, a facility has an office, and you go in to pay your towing and you pay your storage. We're obviously not a real shiny place because we're in a dirty business. But the CHP, you've applied to that, and they're going to set a rate that they believe works for them. My business, my facility is paid on a square foot basis. The storage area is not a place that I want to have, but it's a place that I need to keep. Because if I have an excess amount of work, or if something has come in waiting for parts, and I'll give you a personal example. My storage lot, my business is in downtown Martinez. I'm one block off of Main Street. Not a place that a body shop should be, but I'm there. The corner that I had to purchase to store cars is zoned residential and is approved for a sixplex. Now, what would I rather have on that piece of property? But if I put a sixplex on it, I can't stay in business. The economics of my business are so much different than what you're talking about. You have to consider the square foot. Reasonable makes a little bit of sense. But we're always put in an arbitrary position when we're dealing with storage because we're dealing with insurance companies. Well, you can't charge that because the guy down the street charges less. But he doesn't know what my economics are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. To call on another speaker, I just wanted to, these regulations are based on the laws that were drafted by the legislature, and the law that we're talking about here, AB 1263, says we have authority to draft regulations based on civil code, and this is where I'm emphasizing civil code, vehicle code,
Business professions code.
business professions code, which we operate in. And then obviously the insurance code and any regulations developed by the California Department of Insurance, which you've already made a case for. But I wonder if you could touch upon the differentiation between the repair storage with repairs versus no repairs, it really derived from civil code. 3368, 33068. I don't have the numbers exactly right, but if that's not correct, I'm speaking out of line, please correct me. But I think that's where these regulations are coming from. Okay, thank you.
So you're referring to the two civil code sections?
Yeah.
Yeah, one is 3068. That is specific to when a lien arises in a repair transaction. And 3068.1, where lien arises as a result of taking possession of a vehicle. The lien arises in two different situations based on the circumstances of what happened with the vehicle when it arrived at the shop. 3068 is a repair transaction, and the lien arises at the completion of the transaction when the consumer is presented with the invoice, or 15 days after the completion of the repairs if the shop is no longer able to get hold of the consumer. 3068, the lien arises as soon as you take possession of the vehicle. It's the one we use that to explain a situation where a vehicle arrives at a repair shop, much like Gene Lopez brought up last time. Like a Tesla showed up at Snyder's and we didn't know what to do with it because we don't work on them. Well, he's now storing a car. He never was going to work on it. He's not going to work. He's not going to work on it. He's not planning on working on it. And he is a storage lot, and therefore the lien arose at the point he took possession of the vehicle, such as in 3068.1. And working with the DCA attorneys, we've had several conversations about, is the storage rate the same if there's no repairs? So if a repair shop is acting literally as nothing but a storage lot and there's no repair transaction, did the lien arise? When does the lien arise? Well, if it arises when they take possession of the vehicle, they're acting like a storage lot, they're not acting like a repair shop, and that's where this deviation occurred.
Thank you.
If I may. So that's what my point was that you're changing the market because now the auto body facility will, as you said, the repairs does include like a tear down or an estimate. They're going to do some work to this car, diagnosis, right? They're just not going to say maybe before, if these regulations were in place, they're going to have to do something because they don't want to get capped at CHP rates because they don't have anything to do with they don't have any agreements with them. You know, it's foreign to them. They don't have any business. This is, with the CHP and storage lots. So now that was my point. I think you're changing the market here, and these unintended consequences, but that's what's going to happen. And they're going to be documenting these things, and you're going to be getting. I don't think any shop will start, leave it alone. They're going to document and they're going to say, yeah, I did a tear down and it's a total, whatever, but they're going to do some kind of work to this thing.
Why are they taking possession of the vehicle in the first place?
Someone had them deliver it to them,
Okay.
it's consent. Like my point is it's consensual. The storage lots, the CHP, those are the cars that get towed, because of the tickets and all this kind of, the customer doesn't even know, the consumer doesn't even know where the car is.
Right.
No, someone intended for that car to be sent to that body shop, right? It's consensual. That's the difference here. And we're not talking, I don't see that anywhere in the regulations. Consensual versus non-consensual. And that's a big deal. That's what distinguishes the shops from the towing industry. Because that's where these cars go. The CHP, there's an accident, someone gets hurt. They let's get it off the road. And they're not thinking about repairs, right? And then it goes to the storage lot, and from the storage lot, then it gets towed to the body shop because someone said, get it to the body shop because we would like to get it repaired or we think we can get it repaired. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear and we had that discussion because for some reason we get locked in, the CHP rates. And I can tell you body shops have no clue, legitimate body shops. I'm not talking about, I know you got some problems in Southern California, you have tow yards that get an ARD and they pretend they're, but they don't repair cars. We're not talking about them. We're talking about legitimate body shops and all their stuff, like I said, 99% consensual. I just wanted to make that point.
Let's open it up for some more comments. Pete Pezic, come on forward.
I'm Pete Pezic, California Auto Body Association. And I wanted to talk a little, since we were talking about section 3068, and there was some discussion about the repairs and storage based on repairs or not being repairs. So I'd like to talk a little bit about 3068 and the section that deals with the lien rights.
Yep.
Everybody has lien rights. Every auto repair dealer has lien rights in 3068. Everybody. You, Dave, Bud, body shops. So I'm going to read it slowly because there are key words here. And in this particular situation, the storage under 3068 covers a myriad of things. It doesn't cover just one or two things. It covers a lot of things. So every person has a lien depending upon possession or the compensation to which the person is legally entitled for making repairs or performing labor upon and furnishing supplies, materials for, and for the storage, repair, or safekeeping of and the rental of parking space for any vehicle of a type subject to registration under the vehicle code, subject to the limitations set forth in this chapter. And this really talks about the consensual tow or the consensual repairs, storage, safekeeping of that vehicle requested by the registered owner. It has no bearing on whether that facility, in this particular case, we're talking about a mechanical shop or a body shop, it has no bearing on whether they did repairs, as long as they're providing that service in 3068. But there's a big difference between 3068 and 3068.1. If that body shop has a tow facility attached to it, then you might have that discussion about repairs, if it's towed in on the police tow, or if it's towed in from a parking lot somewhere, then it falls under the police tow section, 3068.1. But if that tow facility has a body shop, when it goes into the body shop and there is an authorization to do work, then it changes. But 3068.1 is totally different. It deals basically with the towing of a vehicle without consent. So if I am a body shop, I don't have to repair the vehicle. I don't have to do anything other than what it's there for. If it's there for storage, it's there for storage. If it's there for safekeeping, it's there for safekeeping. This talk about having to repair a vehicle or do work on the vehicle is inconsistent with 3068. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Yes, come forward. Welcome. I think you're new. Have you been to one of these before? Oh, last time, yeah, I do now. I should come forward. I'm sorry.
My name is Erica Williams.
Yes, sir.
CSA Insurance Exchange.
Yep.
I knew it was insurance. I couldn't remember that she was from insurance.
Yes.
Sorry,
Not that it's a problem. I just remembered.
Well, I appreciate the time to talk, and I'll try to be brief, but I appreciate the renditions from the last talk we had. I do have some more comments and just some feedback from our earlier discussion
Sure.
today. I'll just start from the first page.
Do you need us to, you want to? Well,
Oh,
if
if
you
you'd like
pull
to.
up the section, we'll get it so everyone in the audience can see. If you want to just tell us where to go first.
Yeah, so I'll just start at the beginning at 3303 in the definitions. I want to echo the earlier sentiment that I believe that repairs definition needs to be included for context on whether or not to apply it in the later provisions. And if there is already a definition, then maybe just a reference, like
back.
say, repairs in this section shall be in accordance with wherever it is defined, and just do a cross-sectional reference. That might be easiest.
Yeah, it just starts at X and Y. There's A through, that's why there's several
Okay.
definitions in there, including the one for
Okay.
repair of motor vehicles.
So I'll go.
Fair
back
enough, I
and look
understand.
at that. I missed
right,
it
yeah.
earlier as well. But I'll address further on when we get to that section more why, but I think it's important to include But then the next section, if we go down on 3351.2C. So on the traits here, when it goes through the when an ARD who performs repairs, storage, and then it goes to section 1. It says ARD shall determine the daily rate based on tangible factors, and it includes A through E. And most of those, seem very reasonable. Cost of overhead, operational cost, labor. But I have an issue with A on the revenue potential and how that's tangible. Further down,
Now it's further down.
the C.
Actually, it's on the top. It's on the top of 2, actually. You can go there. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's right there. So A through E. So right before this, it says ARD shall determine the daily storage rate based upon tangible factors such as, and then A, the value of storage space, which I think that's fine, but as determined by revenue potential, that I think is a gray area that can be abused in many contexts, especially by some of the not so savvy shops that are trying to pump the bills. And unfortunately, we see this all the time. And I'm all for shops having a right to earn a profit. That's not the issue. It's just we live in a world today that's full of insurance fraud. I actually have an article I'd like to submit for your review later from the PCI about abusive vehicle towing and storage practices, saying that currently in the nation, the attributed amount to abusive billing for storage and towing is about $500 million, or so $500 million. So I just want to submit that because it's being raised in the insurance fraud worlds from the NICB, the AFA, the DAs, and this is a big problem coming up. And I encourage everyone to attend these conferences that are held quarterly regarding this. And so I just want to make sure that these do truly bring uniformity and conformity to the existing laws. And I'm concerned that the revenue potential, that wording, can leave shops saying like, well, I made, like $500,000 last year in profit. That's my revenue potential. So that's what I should be getting now, even if their daily rates aren't necessarily reasonable. So you will have those outliers. Not everyone. I don't think everyone will do that, but I think having that language in there leaves room for those types of practices. And it also conflicts when you come down to the later provisions regarding the daily rates from the CHP and comparable market rates. No two facilities are necessarily equal, in terms of their size and their offerings, for security. So that this one, I think, just is not necessarily a tangible factor to include, and maybe something to consider. Then also on the subsection 2 here, or actually, sorry, I wanted to say on the earlier comment about whether or not it shall be like it's mandatory. One of the suggested wordings that I propose is take out the first few words, ARD shall determine the daily rate, and put the reasonableness of an ARD's daily storage rate shall be determined, and leave that to the BAR to properly evaluate, and not necessarily make it a mandatory, but just as part of the consideration of what's reasonable.
I get you.
And then further down to the subsection 2 here, if an ARD charges varied storage rates based on the location where the vehicle is stored, the ARD shall report the highest daily storage rate. I'm not sure why only one rate would be included. Can you maybe provide some context on that? Because why would not both be included?
So if there was an inside rate versus an outside rate, on-site location versus an off-site location.
But if only one's reported, how are you supposed to evaluate what's reasonable if you get the other lower rate being used?
If everybody's giving me their highest rate, then I'm comparing everybody to what's the most they're charging.
So I'm talking about like on a case by case basis. So say you have a shop with 2 daily rates because they have an inside and outside storage facility, and they're charging you the more premier location spot of an inside, fully secured location, but your car is sitting now, way in the back by the fence in a dark corner of the alley. I mean, why should it be charged the same if you're charging 2 separate rates?
It shouldn't be charged the same.
Exactly, but how are you supposed to
Well,
quantify that?
Again, I'm trying to come up with an average. So I don't know how I would, unless I define what I want them to report related specific to the average, I'm just going to get one rate. Otherwise, I would have to come up with a rate for different
All the
scenarios.
scenarios.
Okay, so it's okay. I guess I understand that. I am concerned though that it shouldn't be applied for the type of consumer, insured or non-insured, because we do see that. I have information from our vendors that one shop, doesn't matter if it's inside or outside, the same exact services offered for storage have 5 or 6 different rates based on who they're billing. So that's what I'm mostly concerned about, is that variation in rate, and how are you supposed to know if you have 5 different rates based on the consumer type?
That's interesting.
And then so on the third one though, if you are going to leave room for the duration of the registration renewal period to not change within a year, maybe include an exception for financial duress or something like that. That's more reasonable to an extreme change of rates that might be unique for the shops in the VAR's review, because things like insurance rates, and I mean, short of like some catastrophe or economic catastrophe of some measure, like for the most part, costs remain the same or can be projected year by year with inflation. So maybe compromise there is to include an exception for financial duress or certain categories that can be evaluated that are more concrete, rather than leaving it open-ended. But otherwise, 12 months is not that long of time. And then also, I'm not sure if you're trying to do this based on a calendar renewal, like January to December,
Well,
July.
They renew the month that they're registered, so it goes every month.
Okay, so that's what I wasn't sure because it wasn't in here, but if that's how it normally goes, it's just based on the shop's renewal period.
Mhm.
It's when it's being, okay. So then that should, I think, give more flexibility to shops in general, because every shop isn't going to be on the same timeline.
No.
So going further down to section 3351.8.1 under general requirements, I wanted to say, in order to make this truly uniform, it says here, an ARD may charge storage fees when receiving possession of a motor vehicle for storage if they are unable to contact the customer, or the ARD knows they cannot or will not repair the vehicle. In the ARD context, for the most part, they're accepting the vehicles for the purpose of repair, but they don't have to accept vehicles. Like, if some of them are obvious total losses just from looking at it, like they crash into a ravine, which we've had, but then they're charging $3,000 in storage for a few days because they wouldn't release it on day one, because they wanted to do an estimate when it was obvious that it could never have been repaired. So why accept the cars if they don't need to? They don't need to accept every car. I mean, like maybe short of a police officer or CHP saying, take this car now. For the most part, it's, we're in the civil world, and it's completely consensual from both sides, not just the customer or the tow company, but also the shop. But in terms of the how, like, we need to have the how many days in here. How many days are they unable to contact the customer? Oftentimes they can contact the insurance adjuster, maybe include or a third-party payor or something like that, because sometimes even the insurance companies have a hard time getting a hold of their insureds, but they can make elected decisions on some of these things based on the context, obviously. But I think just having a number of days in there, or maybe even just adopting the 3-day rule from, I think it's 106.52.5. That should be included in there, which is 3 days before storage is allowed after written consent or notice. That might be just to be fair and consistent with the rest of the code. Because otherwise they might charge it the same day, they might charge it the next day. I didn't hear from them on a Saturday and it's Monday now, so now you get 3 days of storage, something like that. I think
Where's
having,
the provision?
Well, 106.52.5 vehicle code, of course, they do get 15 days of storage before they have to stop charging storage to provide written notification for a period of 3 days, and then they can start charging storage again. Pete,
yeah,
did you want to chime in on this?
Section 3068 and applies to the legal owner.
That's true too.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
and then just to discuss further down on subsection C here on the average daily storage rate wording.
Which one? What-
Same section 3351.8.
Yeah, I see it.
C.
Okay.
And the last section here says to identify an average daily storage rate.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with that language, and I don't think it's necessarily going to change the market just from having this, because there's other parts, including in the next subsection 1, that says it's not used to influence the actual rates. It's just there for a reference tool. And then also the main statute 225-4.5 says as well that it has to be reasonable, ordinary and reasonable. And I believe in that same section, it says that, you know, it's not necessarily if it's higher or lower, it's, you know, it can still be reasonable if it's not average.
Right.
So I think that's already covered
Mhm.
by the existing laws and the additional context here. But otherwise, we need to have a definition of what's reasonable. If you're gonna, if that's really an issue, I think that if you want to dive deeper, then you're gonna have to also define what actually is reasonable, and that requires regulating the daily rates specifically. So that's, I think, kind of like a fine line. But the locale, I do appreciate on section 2 here, just further down. For the purposes of this article, locale is defined as a radius of an ARD sufficient to identify the 10 geographically closest ARDs performing the same types of repairs. Yes, right there, section 2 there. And then it says the maximum radius shall be 10 miles, which I could see this going different ways depending on the geography, because if you're in San Francisco, you might have 10 shops within a mile radius of itself. And that's not necessarily a true average or comparable rate to view for the city, especially if you're in the financial district. For instance, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that there's 10 right there, but in different metropolitan areas, this might not be so great at getting a true picture of what is the average rate. But if you go maybe further down to Fresno, this would be perfect because you're looking for the 10 closest, and there might not be 10 within 10 miles. So maybe put an or extend it, say to identify the 10 geographically closest or within 10 miles or something like that, so you can get that context. I just want it to apply to all of the state rather than just specific parts of the state. If we can do that, just because I know some places are more congested than others, and this may or may not be an actual picture that is worth like using, a useful tool if you have those areas.
Okay.
Okay, so then further down, I was gonna just comment, I really do appreciate section D here, on 2 and 3. An ARD charging for vehicle storage shall permit the customer's third-party payer access to that vehicle for inspection. Then section 2 says it can be stored at another location, but you have to notify it and notify the customer in advance, because that's really important. I think it's also included in the other codes, but there's been issues with that not happening. And then the section 3 here, D3, that says the customer has to actually authorize it. So I do appreciate these additions that weren't here last time. But then turning to the storage fees resulting from a repair transaction. So section A, when we have the performs repairs language, like we talked about, not to beat the bush or anything, I think it does need to have definition or clarification, and mostly in this context of teardowns and estimates. Does that, at what point is it a repair if there's a teardown, but no actual authorization for repairs has been made, but the teardown has been authorized, because you do have to authorize a teardown. So this is the gray area that's going to have a lot of argument unless there's crystal clear clarity on whether or not the daily storage rate can apply under the market rate or the CHP rate in this context. How much needs to be done before it crosses the line to be an ARD market rate versus a CHP storage rate? And I think it's important to have both, because our main code, vehicle code 22524, has that I think it's section 2,
Two,
C.
there's, C2A and C2B. But
Yeah.
C2A is the one that, okay, go ahead.
But there's no context on whether or not on when it applies. When do you apply the CHP rate, or when does the market rate apply? It just says it shall be reasonable if it does not exceed the market rate, or if it does not exceed the CHP rate. So I think these regulations that are being proposed here help shed light on when those apply, which I really applaud that this is being done. I just want to make sure that it's not going to leave more room for argument later if we can nip it in the bud now. And this is the biggest area, is when does that apply? At what point in the repair process does it tip over?
I would let you know it's as soon as they contract to perform automotive repair.
So does
Yeah, but-
that include tear down?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and does that include just doing an estimate?
If the estimate requires assembly, but if it's a visual estimate, then they would actually know.
Okay, so because we're getting the market rate now under both contexts. So if that's going to be it, then I think it just should be clear that the latter one, when no tear down is done, it's just a visual estimate or diagnostic, something like that. Then it should be clear from reading the definition of repairs and
Okay.
and how this is applied.
You have the definition of repairs?
Then what, in here?
Yeah.
You know, it's
No, in
funny.
front of you. Zach? Just kidding.
Ready.
You saw just two of those definitions. Repairs is up. We just did
Yeah.
the ones relevant to this
Okay.
regulation
And I
package.
keep saying it's in the 3303 section. I believe myself to be accurate.
Oh, it
But I
could be
will
in-
also say it could be.
there is
contained in
another-
0.1, the.
Yeah,
definition
it
in
could
the
be elsewhere.
reference code
Yeah.
section too.
But maybe there's a reference that can be, says repairs pursuant to, as you said. Okay.
Yeah, I will look for
Because
that
tear
after this
downs
too.
are considered a repair.
And then the last part on this that I wanted to mention is, so section 8.4 here, storage fees and rates that are higher or lower than the average as specified by 3351.8.c2 shall be permitted if determined reasonable. But again, we're chasing our tail because reasonable isn't defined, but I want to actually reference the 3068 conversation we had earlier for under the civil code and the lien statutes. And there's actually a section there, I think it's 30868C1, if I'm not mistaken, that actually limits the maximum amount of daily storage rate. And it depends on whether or not a lien is actually applied for or not. And it should be 1250 on the higher end and 1025 on the lower end, in either context. And this is the exact same statute that's referenced and used when storage rates aren't paid for because the final bill comes back as unreasonable. The shops immediately go to lien sale under these statutes. So it's my argument that that whole statute should apply, not just part of it.
So
They're going to use, oh, go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to, I was just gonna say, so the section you're referring to within 3068, it does talk about the fact that they have within 30 days, after the lien arises, they have to file for authorization to conduct a lien sale with the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the lien will be extinguished. Clearly what it says. But the thing is, the amounts are a limitation on the legal owner of the vehicle, but not necessarily on the customer, based on whether there's a loan on the vehicle, a lien holder.
Yeah, but the storage rate should still be the same because they're lien selling it and they notify the registered owner. And they should also be ready, they should also be notifying any interested parties like the insurance company or any known lien holders. But it doesn't say that the maximum storage is dependent on who owns it. That's the maximum storage rate that's applied.
Okay, those limitate, fair enough, thank you. I won't stop you from keep going on.
So it's just something that has come up a lot because if you don't have a daily storage rate that is quantifiable, that is readily available and visible, we're not able to actually see what it is, but we do have civil code here, this 3068 that says this is the maximum storage rate. And for it doesn't define it based on the facility type, it's just the service type. And so I think that's something that should be revisited and looked at. This section 3068 is cross-referenced throughout this proposed language. And I think it should also be looked at wholeheartedly and not ignored for only part of it. Because what also happens is when these bills come back and they're not reasonable, there's no enforcement happening as well. And so if there's not a definition for reasonable and there's no limitations, then they can charge 30, 60, 80, 90, 120 days. I've seen bills as much as 400 days storage because of these ongoing disputes. And this code section caps it. The lien sales cap it, but they're not being used correctly. They're being ignored instead. And so I think this is a good opportunity to reference them and include them because they already exist. They're already part of the legislator's intent to include.
That's
in
maybe
these
68
contexts.
Well, yeah, that's the limitation of 30 days before you have to file for authorization to collect lien sales. She's also talking about later on in that section where it talks about the limits, the lien limits.
Okay.
Yeah, because what's happening is when we get the final bill, we're getting a lien sale bill at the same time as the final bill.
Mm.
And that includes the $100 lien fee. And then, so we have a quick
Okay.
turnaround to do it. So how can they lien sale the vehicle under the same statute, but then charge $5,000 in storage? So that's the conflict. And if we really want uniformity and conformity, we need to address this. That's my opinion. So please, if you can, take it under consideration, revisit it, because I think that's going to be a driving force for future litigation if it's not cited or referenced. But then further down in, where are we? Section, so same 3351.8.2, but then down to the end, section E and 1. So this is the number of days, I think it's the second to last page or last page.
E1.
He's getting that.
Yes. Yeah, right there. So I just wanted to say, like what we said earlier, under vehicle code 1065 2.5, I think it's A, or it might be D. It says that there needs to be basically a 3-day grace period after receiving an itemized written estimate before storage can accrue. So I think that needs to be cross-referenced here because it shouldn't be any earlier than 3 days. Here it leaves it open-ended because it's leaving the shop open to saying when storage can start, but it's also capped, I think, at no earlier than 3 days.
Okay.
So just, I think that should be included for clarity, so there's no ambiguity, because if you just look at this as a standalone, it might have some application problems. And then the last thing I wanted to include is with enforcement. When we've been using the moderator program, and I think it's Garrett from the BAR. He's one of the individuals that have commented on some of these repair bills for us. He said, no, you can't charge these days of storage, like when they're doing estimates and they're charging storage from day one, ends up being a total loss, and provides his opinion. I've had emails from shops saying that I didn't get fined. So obviously the BAR agrees with me when that's a complete lie. And we have emails from both parties saying that. And so there's no enforcement here, but vehicle code section 22658, I want to say J1, has an excessive fees penalty. It's 4 times. And I'm not saying, we need to necessarily, fine every single violation that comes across the board, but there needs to be some kind of teeth, I guess, that the BAR uses, because otherwise, if like in this context, when the shop just thumbs their nose at the BAR's recommendations and they still keep the vehicle, we're left with no other recourse but lawsuits, which is much more expensive than any other recourse that we could have through the BAR. And so either probation or a citation or something should be included. We do have a vehicle code that allows for civil penalties already. It's 4 times. It's not the 4 times difference of what's charged between what's reasonable and excessive. If it's excessive fees, it's charged, it's penalized up to 4 times the amount. That can be years process to get there. And no one wants to do that over a single case. So I think some kind of context or recourse for shops that do cross the line that purposefully violate these statutes should be included, because we do live, again, in a world with insurance fraud and an insurance crisis market. And we want to protect consumers, and we don't want to have to do this, but we have to in order to protect them, because otherwise it hits their premiums in the long run. We have $10,000 average storage rates for a single shop on average. It doesn't matter how long the car's been there. They just replace their final bill fee per estimate and turn it into a storage from day one. I mean, there's no recourse. It's just going around in circles. And so this is something that I think, however it is that the BAR wants to do to kind of control that for consumers, because it shouldn't matter if insurance is involved. It should be that if you as an individual walk through the store, decide not to get your car done by the shop for whatever reason, you should be able to walk out with a consistent bill. And if you don't, because the shop is purposely doing things that they know they shouldn't, like charging estimate fees, charging for a customer signature. I mean, you wouldn't normally expect that to be charged, but the moment that an insurance company refuses to pay it, they withhold your vehicle. The customer can't even retain the vehicle because they won't release it, because those are two options: owner retain or insurance retain for salvage. You know, or the maybe the customer is savvy or knows other shops and they can go take it somewhere else to get repaired at a lower rate, but they can't if they can't get it out because of the storage bills. And so when they are unreasonable, there needs to be some kind of either probation or penalty of some sort that can be readily available. Like they have the lien sale statutes, they can easily do that. We don't have that. Customers don't have that to get their shops. Their only recourse is either small claims or a civil suit. You know, so in order to avoid that, especially with thousands of vehicles being totaled weekly, I mean, we should be able to ramp this up to a point where it can be applied across the board. So I just want to throw that out there because it's under the vehicle code already. But maybe something a little less harsh or impractical might be more reasonable to include.
Okay, I wanted to respond. We do have enforcement authority, a full range of all the way from citation, well, education, which we're doing now through the referral process, all the way to a citation and then administrative discipline that disciplines the license itself. But you have to have a law to enforce. That's what we're working on today.
Okay.
So once the regulations get adopted, that's something then we could enforce through a whole range of options that are available to us, from the education, which we're doing now, even ahead of these regulations, by putting out a Q&A guidance earlier this year in January. We put that out. That was intended at right after the bill was signed into law to give us the authority to develop regulations, give some guidance to the two industries. We were kind of caught in the middle on a lot of these disputes. So we thought maybe we could help resolve some of them by giving them some interpretations on the laws that are out there until such time as the regulations are developed. But yes, once the regulations are adopted, then we can apply whatever our range of options are to those scenarios.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Because right now, a lot of the recommendations go through, no problem. It's just there are handfuls of shops that still ignore it. So that's good to hear that once these are finalized, then that might improve on that end. So that is all I have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Erica. Additional questions, comments from those in the room? Yes, come on forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi.
My name is Rob Arnig. I own and operate Arnig Auto Body in Roseville. I was a young man when I started in 1989. Been doing this a long time, and I think you guys check your records. We've never had a complaint with BAR in 35 years. Proud of that because we treat people right. We try to do the right thing, but it often gets harder and harder and harder. I've got a few things I want to address. One was the Mr. Gibson mentioned that try to forecast 12 months on that's extremely difficult. Our business, especially now, is changing drastically. I'll give an example. We recently had a $20 an hour labor rate for fast food workers. That doesn't affect anybody but fast food workers, right? Completely wrong. My $16 an hour guy that's sweeping floors and learning a craft, when that happened, told me he's leaving, go to work for McDonald's because they'll pay $20 an hour. I had to give him more money. Well, my next level tech sees now that kid's making $20 an hour. I got to give him more money and on up the chain. That $20 an hour fast food bill that doesn't affect anybody at fast food workers affected me greatly. Where am I supposed to scramble to make up some of this money now and keep my doors open? Storage is one place that maybe I could do that, but not if I got to wait 12 months. So you mentioned, Mr. Gibson, Labor Rate Hero, and that has the potential to be a really great website. The problem is it's not all current data.
I think there's a lot of problems with it.
Yeah. But I don't understand why you couldn't do something like that where you've got an area for shops to report their new storage rate starting August 1st, but then populates itself and will automatically give you the numbers you're looking for. I think we have computers that can pretty easily do that, I think. So I think there's a way around that, but I think to ask us to lock in a rate for a year is very tough to do. We already have to do that pretty much with our labor rates because insurance companies pretend to do surveys sometimes and try to lock us in at a labor rate. So, you know, I think the state sometimes forgets that businesses need to be able to keep the doors open. And we can't do that if we're not being profitable. Next thing, the young lady had me mention insurance fraud. And there's certainly shops out there that do that. I understand that. And I say, go get them. I got to compete with those clowns. But insurance fraud works both ways. There's probably not a month that goes by that I don't have an insurance company call me, threatening me, or send me a threatening letter that I'm overcharging in storage because I can only charge what tow companies charge. They know that's, I'll say bogus. They know it. They absolutely know it. They are now trying to defraud me. Fortunately, I've learned the rules and hold firm to that and can answer them back. And generally I do, when I report back to them that we're not changing it and why, it gets resolved, but that doesn't stop them from trying. She had mentioned that, 400 days of storage is ridiculous. Department of Insurance has regulations in place that allow them to stop paying storage. They have to give reasonable notice and a couple of other things, but they can stop paying for storage. So generally those excessive storage days come when an insurance company has completely dropped the ball, and it happens a lot. She represents CSAA. I'd encourage you right now, pick up the phone and try to call somebody at CSAA and see if they answer the phone. Getting a hold of a live person at that company or virtually any other right now is extremely difficult. So cars tend to get left way too long in spite of our continuous phone calls. We don't want to be a storage facility. Mr. Henderson, was it? Hendricks? Hernandez, thank you. I was close. I agree with him. We want to fix cars. If we wanted to be a storage facility, we go buy tow trucks and rent a cheaper space. But sometimes we're forced in a situation where we have to, and it shouldn't hurt us to have to do that. Another thing, and I believe your department is here as a consumer protection. Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. Reasonable storage rates help the consumers. When I've got a car in my shop that's totaled, I educate my customer. I don't work for insurance companies. We have zero direct repair relationships by design. I educate my customers that it's important to maintain control of your vehicle. Once it goes to their storage-free yard, I see it all the time, my customers get beat up. If they control the storage and hold the insurance company accountable for a reasonable and speedy settlement on a total loss, they can do that through a shop like mine, Charge and Storage. It's very beneficial. Lastly, there's a lot of MSO, multiple shop operators out there. And maybe the state would rather that's all there is out there, but there's still a lot of shops like mine, single operator, mom and pop shops trying to make it. More regulations make that so difficult. It is so hard for a guy like me to stay on top of all the regulations. So I just ask you, please keep that in mind as you proceed forward.
Yep.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rob. Have
Thank
you
you.
seen the Q&A we put out on our website? Maybe when you have one of those conversations with an insurance company about that and you're
I'll
trying to
have to look
hold
at
you
that.
to a certain, the towing
I haven't-
rate,
I've
maybe
not
you
seen
can
it.
refer to that.
Okay.
If you can find it on our website.
I will look for that.
Yeah, it's designed to help you in that fight.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what else? Who else? Let's, no one in the room. We'll open it up on the WebEx moderator. You want to open it up for public comment through the WebEx platform?
Certainly. And we do already have some raised hands, but just to make the announcement, if you'd like to make a comment, you can click once on the hand icon to raise your hand. Just please know that if you click again, it'll lower your hand and you will lose your place in line. So our first commenter is Allison Addy, and Allison, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
Good afternoon. I'm Allison Addy on behalf of the Personal Insurance Federation of California. We appreciate the opportunity to participate in the workshop on storage and towage fees for the automotive repair dealers, and we thank the bar staff for all their hard work on these draft regulations. We're still reviewing the details, but our initial member concerns are largely in line with the concerns raised by CSAA. There are two key concerns with the draft regulations, which I will go over briefly. First, Section 3351.8.1A states the following: an ARD may charge storage fees when receiving possession of a motor vehicle for storage if they are unable to contact the customer or the ARD knows they cannot or will not repair the vehicle. We're concerned that this could allow an ARD to potentially sit on a vehicle that it does not have the time to start working on or has no intention of repairing at its sole discretion and then charge for the storage. We assume that's not the intent of the regulation, as it is not presently allowed, and insurers generally have time to inspect the vehicle before an ARD can charge for storage. The language should be clarified to ensure that an insurer is notified and has sufficient time to inspect the vehicle and to take possession if necessary to avoid a dispute. Additionally, we think it would be appropriate to delete the will not repair language, since a reasonable disagreement over the repair amount could lead a shop to refuse to make repairs and then charge storage on a repairable vehicle. Again, the decision should not be at the sole discretion of the shop without providing the consumer and the insurer the opportunity to pick up the car, as this could provide an incentive for an ARD to capture a vehicle simply for storage revenue. Second, throughout the regulation, ARDs should be required to give notice to both the insured as well as the insurer, given that the insurer is walking in the shoes of the customer. For example, Section 3351.8.2 B3 states, to charge for vehicle storage incurred after completion of repairs, an ARD shall obtain customer authorization, generate an itemized invoice, and notify the customer that the repairs are complete. We think it would be beneficial to add language requiring an ARD to also notify the insurer as soon as the repairs or teardown of the vehicle are completed. The current situation requires the insurer to follow up with the shop daily to get a status update. But if the insurer is notified, it would expedite the inspection and pickup of a vehicle. Therefore, there should always be a reasonable grace period to provide time for the customer or insurer to pick up a vehicle after being placed on notice. To facilitate appropriate notice and make it easy for an ARD, we are open to the insurer providing a designated email address to receive any notice from the ARD should that be necessary. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide these initial comments on the draft regulation, and we look forward to sharing additional feedback as the workshop process continues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Next commenter, moderator.
Our next commenter is Alyssa Lair. Alyssa, I'm sending you a request to unmute. You're unmuted.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elisa Lair.
If you could speak a little louder.
My name is Elisa Lair. I'm with Johnny's Custom Auto Body in Gilroy, California. I have a long list. Currently, if the insurance companies would actually adhere to and pay attention to the Fair Claims Settlement Act, they're supposed to respond to the body shop within 6 days. I do not sit on cars. I do not have the space. I do not have the time. If they would actually, I find it funny that CSAA is here. I've been calling them on a daily basis, emailing them on a daily basis on a vehicle that's been done for 2 weeks. What'll happen, they'll finally pick it up, because I'm not a direct repair shop. I am an independent shop. I am a direct repair shop for Tesla, but they actually pay door rate. That's a whole other story. The insurance companies themselves, they're here today because they actually drop the ball consistently. It's consistent. I can name every single insurance provider. That's one thing. They should be paying attention to the Department of Insurance regs, and that would that would stop those issues. Another thing is the CHP and the tow companies, they're in contract. I'm not in that contract. The owner of the vehicle does not just, the CHP doesn't just send their car to my shop. The tow truck companies do not send that car to my shop. The owner of the vehicle does. And I'm not in the business of storage. I have a very small space, a very finite amount of space, and every single inch that I have needs to go to production. I do believe another part of it was not allowing for us to charge storage while we were repairing the vehicle. If an insurance company is failing to do their due diligence and reply to, respond, or act on supplements, I now have to take that vehicle out of production, and it's now taking up space of another vehicle that could be coming into my shop. So I don't think that's fair that I can't charge storage while they mess around for a couple weeks arguing with me, so that I finally prove to them that I need to do these processes to make the car right. And then we end up going forward from that. And it's a 2 to 3 week period. And I believe a lot of it is due to the new AI world of pushing a button and thinking that you know how to do an estimate or a supplement. That's a problem. Oh, what else here? Dear Lord. As far as being locked into a number throughout a year's period, I'll take, for example, insurance companies are already supposed to be doing labor rate surveys within a geo-specific area, which none of them do. I do my own because we have a 4-mile area in where my shop is. It's very small and it's a very easy area to do. I will call up all the other shops, find out what their rates are, and oddly, the insurance companies are consistently insanely low, $20 to $30 an hour. But you know, fair and equitable is the words they like to use. Fair and equitable to them is the cheapest possible way. Usually they're going off of old estimates that they've paid on, where they figure that, well, we told you what the rate's going to be, so that's what we're going to pay on. Big problems, you guys. Big problems. And now you're trying to do this again, and you're making it so hard for us to actually function as businesses. It's not even funny. It's very frustrating. You know, it's like, here's a perfect example: labor rate surveys. If they don't do a survey, they can go by the CPU. Well, California's CPU is funny numbers, just like everything else. So they say the CPU is 4.6%. Well, when you go to the federal numbers, it's actually almost 17%. That was 1 year. So this is insanity to me. I'm sorry, but it is. I understand that there's shops out there that do things wrong, but I'm one of the shops that does things right. I actually contacted BAR myself to make sure I'm doing things correctly. And granted, there's horrible people out there, horrible people everywhere, but I'm sorry, what I run into on more than anything is not bad shops, but it's bad insurance companies. And if, like I said, if they were doing their due diligence and adhering to the DOI regs as things are, we wouldn't be talking. And that's it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. I was going to try to bring you back to a specific reg section.
Oh,
that you
that's
wanted recommendation.
Which one?
Yeah, I've heard that story, so I appreciate it very much. Let's move on to our next commenter if we can.
Certainly. Our next commenter is Mike. And Mike, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
Miguel from Mike's Auto Collision.
And could you speak a little more loudly?
All right. My name is Miguel from
Thank
Mike's
you.
Auto Collision. Thank you for everybody for your time today. My question is regarding Locale. I know the last time we met, we talked a little bit about Locale, but how does Locale fit in? How is that defined? For example, you know, I might have a cemented lot versus my neighbor that might have a dirt lot. I have, you know, an iCar Gold shop versus my neighbors that don't. So how is Locale defined, and how are those compared?
Was actually all right. Locale was defined. We wrote a definition specifically to comparing each shop to to the 10 close geographically located repair facilities within a 10-mile radius. And then at the point that you go past 10-mile radius, because there's not 10 miles, 10 shops within that 10-mile radius, then you would just be compared to the number of repair shops within that 10-mile circle.
Correct, but my main thing is, how do you compare my shop to another shop when we are all different?
Well, I'm asking you guys to give us your highest daily storage rate so that we can generate an average for your area. And so over 10 stations, are you the highest? I mean, is your shop better than all 10 repair shops located closest to you?
I mean, given the accreditations that we've got, the OEM certifications that we received, we would consider ourselves on the top tier, correct?
I think if we're debating anything, we'd be debating the number of shops that we were hoping to get an average from. We're saying 10 because it seems reasonable. And if I'm trying to get an average of 10 shops, I think I'm going to get an accurate number for that locale. So that's how we define locale, was the 10 shops closest to you geographically, or the amount of shops within a 10-mile radius of your location.
Okay, I just think it's hard to compare one shop to another, especially when, you know, one is, once again, a dirt lot versus one being a cemented lot. One having accreditations, one not. Certain expenses are, you know, not shared commonly throughout the industry. And
Right.
it's hard to find comparables. For example, when you're doing a real estate evaluation of comparables, that's a little bit easier. However, when you're doing a body shop comparable, I think that's a little more difficult. And I think that's where locale comes into play as far as who is charging what and how you're charging. If you're talking about the bullet points regarding how you're supposed to charge or how you're suggesting you charge, you know, those are going to be very different from one lot to another.
At least be. You think?
Yep. Anything else, Miguel?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next commenter.
And our next commenter is Tim Ronak. Tim, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You're unmuted.
Everybody's efforts on this workshop. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, going through all these notes, I tried to make notes as we went through this particular discussion. And, you know, I like the idea personally. Oh, by the way, my name's Tim Ronak. I'm with Akzo Nobel, manufacturer of products for the collision industry. I do work with a large number of collision repair shops, not just in California, but all over the country. One of the things that you had down there as a factor in determining storage rates was the idea that there might be criteria that might be based locally on the value of the business. And one of the things I will proffer is that the value of a facility located in the center of Orange County for an opportunity cost of the use of that facility is very different than the value of the facility located maybe in the Inland Empire. And that's not to say that one place is any better than another, but there's a reason large square footage warehouse facilities are located inland where the land and dirt may be much less value. When you have a concentrated area of economic development, it's quite likely that it's going to be a lot more money to store a vehicle there rather than in a place that might be inland. Now, that's not to disparage them and say that they don't have similar investments, but there is an inherent cost of the property to be able to be located out in that area. Okay, that's point number one, is that there is a difference in where that vehicle is being stored, and the economic opportunity cost of that could very well be defined by the rule that you have put in place already, which is the average revenue. And not to point out, but Erica from CSAA indicated that, you know, shops that might make $500,000. I just want to make sure we don't conflate profit with revenue. There's a big difference between selling $500,000 and making $500,000. And the challenge we have is that every facility may have a capacity constraint to the volume of repair that they can do. And that volume of repair basically dictates the opportunity cost or the value of that facility. And most of the automotive repair dealers I work with are collision repairers. And those collision repairers, to a point that was made, and I didn't get the gentleman's name, but he gets paid to fix cars, not store them. And most of these facilities are equipped and designed and structured in a way that they optimize the ability to repair cars. They're not optimized to store cars. So if they're going to have problems in the repair process, it's important to recognize that these are not like tow yards that may or may not even have a public restroom available. So the difference is pretty significant when it comes to the rates. I did have a long list of things, but in the interest of keeping all of this moving forward, the only other point I wanted to make was that one of the challenges we have with these very large storage bills is that in some instances, repairers are really struggling with the approval process for repairs. And I did hear that there was a 3-day window that an insurer wanted the beginning of a storage charge after a vehicle was completed. Well, I think that should be also extended to a change order request or a supplement, that when the work is going to change because they found some additional repair needed as part of a repair plan or strategic disassembly or whatever you want to call it, that response shouldn't be 15 days where the car sits idle. Repairers are designed to fix cars, and sitting on a car for 15 days rather than just a quick 3-day window creates a burden on that shop to be able to provide that and not use that space for their targeted activity, which is repairing vehicles. My question is, has anybody considered the in-process storage fees and what that would look like? Because these vehicles need different care and control than a storage fee that might be for a vehicle that's already been completed and can sit outside in the lot. We want to make sure we don't cause any additional damage with dust or dirt or rain getting inside the vehicle. So primarily these vehicles that are in process delays are held within the facility to protect them, which is a responsibility of the repairer. My question is, do we have anything in place to assist shops with this in-process delay process that is currently maybe being abused by some bad actors?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the answer is that a repair facility cannot charge storage while the vehicle is undergoing repairs. And so since the insurance company is, and I say this recognizing that this itself might cause its own questions, but since the insurance company is not the customer and cannot be the customer, as they are specifically excluded from being the customer by Business and Professions Code Section 9880.1F, if a repair shop is waiting for an insurance company to give them authorization to proceed with a repair, then they are waiting on the wrong person for the authorization.
Okay, fair enough. So are you saying then, if the consumer authorizes the work order change, then the shop can carry on with the repairs? Is there something in the BAR regulations that allows for that, even if the insurer disputes that amount?
I can't control what the insurance company does, but I know that a repair facility has to have authorization from the customer to perform the repairs. And if they have authorization, then from our perspective, they have the ability to perform those repairs and charge for them.
Awesome. So if the consumer then needs to reach out to their insurance company to see whether or not the change order will be approved, and that shop gives that consumer, let's just say 3 days, because that was a number brought up by Erica. Let's say we give the insurer 3 days to respond. At the end of that 3 days, can we pull the vehicle from repairs? And now it is an on hold, waiting on status update status, and now storage fees can be applied because it's no longer in repair.
Have to have the contracted repairs before you can charge storage. So if you are in the middle of the repair process and you have not completed the contracted repairs, whatever was agreed upon between the repair shop and the customer, then you're not you wouldn't be able to charge storage until those repairs are completed.
But if that contract changed and had a larger scope to it and it's not agreed to at this point, wouldn't you agree that now that vehicle needs to be removed from the process?
I guess we should do this right now because we're getting away from storage. And I apologize.
This is storage actually, but if you would like to defer to another time to have a conversation like that, I would love to hear clarification. I've got a large number of clients that would like clarification specifically on that response to change request.
That would be great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Tim, and anything else, feel free to send us in writing. We can always accept comments in writing. after the fact.
Okay, I will work to get involved as best I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next commenter.
Yes, our next commenter is Leo. And Leo, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Of LA Collision Centers, and just got a couple of things to say on my side, and a lot of my colleagues brought up a lot of good points. One of the good points, actually, one of the Exalta teammates just brought up the storage fees when it consists of the insurance companies uh, sometimes to do a supplement. We do get the customer's authorization, but at that point, it's no longer an authorization. It is an on hold process because no insurance company would, in the rightful process, could take 20, 30 days for an approval process. We work with Mercedes and BMWs. So doing a Mercedes or a BMW in our industry, it's not $2,000. It's not $3,000. Our supplements are $15,000, $20,000. 30,000 customer has $30,000 to the $30,000 supplement. So at that point,
Leo, I think your sound is breaking up a bit.
oh, can you hear me better? Hello?
It's getting better, yeah.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, I apologize.
no problem.
So it sometimes, I'm sorry, just to clarify, I left off at, so we work with Mercedes and BMW. So our supplements are coming out to be $20,000, $30,000. So at that point, when we call the customer to authorize 20, 30,000, the customer's like, well, I can't authorize 20, 30,000 because my insurance cannot authorize it. So the repairs become on hold. When the repairs become on hold, the insurance companies take up to a month, and we've seen sometimes go into 2 months. I'm right now into a 2-month approval process from an insurance company. So at that 2 months, the car being here, it is not fair to automotive body shops to hold on for an insurance company because customers don't have that money. I'm not working with a $2,000 bumper or a $1,000 bumper that a customer could pay for. Wouldn't it be fair to push the insurance companies to send someone down within 6 to 7 business days, a reasonable time frame for them to look at these vehicles so that way the shops don't lose money? That's my one point. So we do have to regulate from going from supplement to supplement where the insurance companies, especially working with high-end cars nowadays, with ADAS alone, cost of ADAS resets are about $4,000 to $5,000, just the reset sometimes, because these cars are becoming more complicated and customers not going to be able to afford those type of repairs. So I do think we have to put storage places in place for the insurance companies. And there's good insurance companies, don't get me wrong, and there's bad insurance companies. So it works both ways, but we do have to regulate that part, letting the insurance companies know, look, the repair facility that you're working with is not a small repair facility. It has to have certain time frames to get approvals done. And the longer the car stays, the more money we lose because we can't get another vehicle in, especially with a certified shop. The second point I want to make is the average cost for storage versus the overcharging of facilities. And a lot of times the insurance companies do use that kind of language with their insured or their claimants, saying the shops are going to overcharge, even though we have everything in place from day one. So what we do in our shop, we do get the authorization for teardown from the owners. We do disclose the storage fees, what the fees are going to be if the vehicle is a total. We submit those estimates within 3 to 4 business days to the insurance companies because a lot of times insurance companies, they don't have nobody. I'll give you an example. I submitted an estimate within 4 business days to National General. Right now, we're on day number 40, and they still haven't approved it. And it's an open shop assignment. So everything's day stamped. Events, when we submit it, it still doesn't have an approval. So as a shop owner, if they come back and say if it's a total, I have the right to charge from storage since we disassembled it, we wrote the estimate, we uploaded it. Why are we going to be considered to be an overcharging repair facility when we did our job and the insurance company dropped the ball by not approving it or denying it or totaling the car? And the last thing I want to say is why not come up with a template system that all of us could use? And that template will be like, we put in the scenarios, and that way we could see if that is the right way of we're doing things. And I don't know if that works for the bar or that works for the shops, but I think there's got to be a system where, yeah, there's bad shops, there's bad insurance companies also, but at the same time, the good shops are getting the hit with these storage fees. And we had one where now insurance companies are hiring attorney groups, sending a demand that we need a refund the insurance company, where we uploaded the insurance company's estimate within 4 business days, and they totaled the car, and they want to go off of when they totaled the car, even though the shop did the work and we uploaded everything to the insurance company with the teardown. So why are we going to be charged for overcharging, or why do we have to refund the insurance company when we did their job for them, uploading the estimate, and now they're coming back? And when you call them, for example, this is Liberty. I called Liberty to discuss what's going on with these companies. They're saying, well, we handed it over to Wilbur Group. So Wilbur Group is now handling the storage fees, and you would have to deal with them. And anything that goes to court, you would have to handle with them. So why are shops being sued for properly disclosing and operating? And now the insurance companies are hiring third parties to go after good shops when they're not even sending anybody down to the shops anymore. So those are the things the topics that frustrate me. And I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit longer, but these are the topics that frustrate shop owners nowadays. Insurance companies taking more than 3 weeks, 4 weeks for initial estimates. So we're handling all the estimates within 7 business days for them. And then the supplements are taking even more than a month or 2 months sometimes to approval. And sometimes even the insurance companies, when they come out, let's say they're working with a high-end car, they'll just total it on the spot because we're working with high-end. So we're losing money on these total losses. So it's not fair to the shop owners that are doing things right, but we do have to come up with clear legislation. Clear meaning because sometimes the insurance companies use that legislation about the highway patrol storage facilities. They use that you can't charge more than $75 or $80, and they tell their insured or claimant you have to pay the difference, and that's it. What do you mean that's it? You're breaking the law by saying that's it, by having the customer charge the difference. So there's a lot of things that the clearer the language, the better it is for everybody. And we can't have these little small ifs, ands, and things like that in our illustration. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
Next commenter. We have a couple more, it sounds like.
Yes, we have 4 more. Next in line is Andrew Battenhorst. Andrew, I'm sending you a request to unmute.
Same comments, and they're kind of repeats, and I do want to give everyone a chance to talk, but at some point we are we're past the scheduled time for the workshop. So try to focus on a specific section of the regulation that you would like us to consider changing from the current draft. That would really help us. Thank you. Our next commenter is?
Yes, Andrew. Andrew, there you go. You're unmuted.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
It's a little quiet. If you could speak up.
Okay, hi there. My name is Andrew Battenhorst. I'm the president of the California Auto Body Association chapter in Glendale / Foothill area. I'm also a member of the Society of Collision Repair Specialists, and my day job is body shop manager for Pacific BMW's Collision Center. The same unethical behavior that the representative from CSAA is dealing with also exists coming from the insurance side. As we all know, the BAR does not have jurisdiction over the insurance companies. However, many insurance companies refuse to use the BAR referral email, to verify a reasonable storage rate. My question really is, why is no one from the Department of Insurance participating in these discussions, as they are involved in how this outcome is for the end person, which is the consumer? What the BAR does not see is that many insurers don't really care if we are acting reasonable in our market, and they will punish the customer and withdraw the excess charges from the customer's total loss settlement, even though there are regulations by the CDI that prevent them from doing so. Why doesn't the CDI collaborate more with the BAR to ensure that they're holding up their end of the bargain and making sure that insurance companies are acknowledging the laws that affect them? and ultimately affect us. And while I appreciate that the BAR's effort is to try and bring clarity and regulation to these excessive storage fees, and believe me, I know firsthand, I work at Glendale. This is a hotbed for fraud. So I completely understand where both sides of the fence are coming from. But I follow these laws very, very closely. And many of my colleagues are on this call know me very well for doing that. The problem is that these laws are then misinterpreted by adjusters. This then puts major financial hardship on their policyholders and customers. And then really, this is even after I've used the hotline or the email myself to verify I am being reasonable. I have 3 instances of where it was determined my rate was reasonable for my market, yet the insurance company didn't care. My last comment is, as a body shop, our customer is the person that's presenting the vehicle for repair, not the insurance company. They have millions of dollars available to them to leverage AI technology or any other type of hiring and any other way of supporting themselves to improve their triage process when it comes to handling claims. Many times there should be cars that are a clear total loss that they route to us or get towed to us when we look at it as it's coming off the tow truck and we know immediately there's no business for this car even being here. It should get routed to their salvage vendor on a timely fashion. I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing and letting us share our opinions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you also for being a citation review panel member.
That's
You're
why.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, our next commenter is Craig. And Craig, I'm going to send you a request to unmute. You're unmuted. Craig, we can't hear you.
Of
There you go.
storage in a body shop versus storage at a transmission shop, storage at a upholstery shop, storage at any general automotive repair dealer. Any thoughts or insights on that?
What was it?
What is unique
Oh,
with body shop storage versus other ARDs is my question.
it has to do with the vehicle code section, specifically 22524.5, which talks about the idea that there are reasonableness standards for storage fees that are charged by repair facilities that do work on vehicles that are involved in accidents and theft recoveries. And so a lot of the issues that we are dealing with revolve around that new authority that was provided to us through Assembly
But what
Bill.
is unique about those repairs?
Nothing's unique about them.
Okay, so why should we pay any differently?
Why should we be paying?
Why should we? I think I've heard proposed legislation where you talked about calling 10 shops within 10 miles or something to that effect. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
10 body shops or 10 shops?
No, it's 10 shops that report to us that they perform repairs on vehicles that have been in an accident or a theft recovery. And that again is specifically based on vehicle code section 22524.
But what is unique about those cars compared to other cars that are getting repaired every day?
It's just the extent of our authority under the law to look at those 2 scenarios.
I know, but what's the difference? I'm just asking you as a consumer. Why would somebody pay more for a collision repair facility versus a transmission shop?
Why would somebody pay more to a collision shop than a transmission shop?
For storage, for daily storage.
Oh, I don't know. I think the point is that the legislation, it has to be an apples to apples comparison. And so we're trying to capture and compare apples to apples businesses, which in this case would be repair shops that do repairs on vehicles that are in theft recoveries.
But why are we doing that? No one's answered the question yet. What is so unique about theft recoveries and collision cars?
Insurance companies.
Because insurance companies are paying the bill?
Perhaps.
I'm just asking.
I'm sorry you're not satisfied with the answer.
I don't know if anyone answered the question. Yeah, it's just we're trying to adopt a regulation.
Well, the uniqueness that I see is that because insurance companies are paying the bill, we want a different set of rules. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Craig.
And our next commenter, yep, is Steve Baran. Steve, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your mic. And you're unmuted, Steve.
Spent. My question is, how and why does this actually benefit the consumer? This appears to be at face value to me an attempt at price fixing, and it's a slippery slope. What's next? Are you going to establish what's fair and reasonable for charging for parts as well? How does the consumer actually benefit from this legislation?
Okay. I don't know where to go with that one. Maybe I'm getting punchy at this point. Do you have somewhere you want to?
Well, not having uncertainty out there as to what the rules are, the laws are. I mean, it's trying to bring this all under, I think on your first slide is trying to unify or bring this all together under one regulation. There are a lot of laws out there speaking to this, and BAR is attempting, as our authorization provides, to bring them all under one regulation.
It appears to be price fixing.
So ultimately for consumers, for sure, but it's going to be more clear rules and understanding, and all of our stakeholders operating off of one set of rules.
And I apologize, Pat. I shouldn't have pushed you.
No.
I would just say that I don't even know what I was going to say.
No, that's fine.
I was going to be profound.
I think
Though.
that's.
I'm telling you right now.
And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, is to bring. We've done this once with a Q&A guidance, and to give some clarity to our interpretation and understanding of what the laws and rules are out there, and this will actually define that in an actual regulation, which is non-existent at this point, or doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah, and I would just add that the Bureau of Automotive Repair does not set prices.
Right.
Other than the price of a certificate of compliance. Workshops are entitled to what their customers authorize for the repairs they perform.
Next commenter.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, our next commenter is Nikki Fasone. Nikki, I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone. Go ahead.
On the situation that we have going on, it does pertain to the storage. I have a vehicle that the repairs are completed on the bodywork stance. At the end of it, the vehicle ended up needing a transmission. Insurance has directed us to take to the dealership. We've been waiting on insurance now for over 20 days to give us clarity if the vehicle is going to be a total loss or not. Customer has been made aware of the situation. At what point are we able to start charging storage on that? For the fact that technically speaking, our contract for the repairs has now been complete, and we are now doing what the insurance company is requesting. And it just doesn't, there's no clarity on that, I feel like, in any of the laws that are in play now, or even what we're talking about at this moment. Because now we're stuck in a position waiting on insurance company for a prolonged amount of time for them just to determine if a vehicle is a total loss.
That is, it completed the contracted repairs, right?
The contract for the bodywork has already been completed and done. Bodywork's all done. Customer has signed a new agreement to take the vehicle over to the dealership for the diagnostics. That has also already been performed, and that information has been provided to the insurance company. Waiting on them. So technically,
I'm sorry. I was saying, have you provided the invoices for the completed repairs to your customer?
Yes.
Then the lien has arisen in the transaction. So you can charge storage.
Okay.
Back to the time when the contract was completed. Yep. Anything else, Nikki?
No, I mean, if it's clear, it's just we've had issues where the bar has already come out on us in a similar situation, and the bar has told us we are not able to charge storage in this situation. So it just seems like there's a lot of unclarity on our end, even as a body shop. When the Bureau of Automotive Repair comes to us, we get different stories on everything. So there's a lot of unclarity. On our,
I don't have the paperwork. I'm going off what you're telling me. And based on the answers you gave me to the questions I just asked you, that would be our answer in this situation.
okay, well, there's been representatives from your department that have given different answers, so if it's on here, it's recorded, that's good enough for me.
Thank you, Nikki. And I think our next one might be our last commenter.
Yes, our last hand raised right now is David Gray. David, I'm going to send you a request to unmute. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Now I can, yes.
All right, thank you. I think at the end of the day, what I'm hearing from a lot of the people on the call is, a call for accountability for the Bureau of Automotive Repair. As a consumer advocacy company, your position is to protect Californians through effective oversight. A lot of these things that you're putting in place for the quote unquote consumer is one-sided. So when people talk about in-process delays and the comment response is, well, the consumer, the owner of the vehicle is the one who has to approve the repairs, but yet the insurer is the repairer, and to the one repairer who has $15,000 to $20,000 supplements, as we do, there becomes a delay. And as a consumer advocacy company, when you establish rules and laws, you have to apply appropriate pressure on all parties. There are multiple parties involved. When the question was asked, what's the difference between a collision repair and a transmission shop? The answer is the payer. And the reason why we're here is because the payer is applying pressure to benefit themselves. And if the Bureau of Automotive Repair is going to involve themselves in establishing rates, then they should make it part of the renewal process where every shop can also submit and must submit their posted retail rates, so that we can get out from underneath these fictitious retail rates that are being imposed upon the consumer, and the consumer is not being reimbursed the value of their loss. And the Bureau of Automotive Repair, who is a consumer advocacy company, is ignoring the fact, right, that this is going on. So maybe having campaigns to educate the customer. But if you're going to involve yourself in the rates, I'm all for it. I'll pay double my licensing fee if you verify my equipment, if you verify my aluminum rates, if you verify my storage rates, my internal rates, my external rates. This is what we need the Bureau of Automotive to do. So if you're going to have effective oversight, then you need to make sure that when people bring up, hey, for the consumer in process delay, there should be storage charges that a facility can charge, and it shouldn't be on the customer if the insurer wants to impose themselves in the process. And in regards to the cost, everybody has a different cost of doing business. If I have a 6,000 square foot facility in the middle of the center, and the guy 10 miles out has a 2.5, acre lot, and he's been in business for 40 years and he owns his business, well, our operating expense is going to be different. So again, just remember what your existence is protecting Californians through effective oversight. And when you take these things in consideration, having honest repairers like us here that are on this call, part of protecting us is doing the right thing for the consumer. So thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Moderator,
I do not see any other public comments. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Bud.
Now, Bud. Just, thank you. Just real quick, I know Pat wants to wrap things up. I wanted to say to the people that are here today and participated, the ones that were with the insurance company, the ones that were shop people that are here, and everyone that's on the phone, your participation is invaluable, and it really is. Okay, and what you have to understand is that you might be one person on the phone, but you represent thousands. Okay, thousands. So thank you.
Thank you, Bud. I didn't pay him to say that, but I agree totally with it. I should have said this with the commenter. I think it was Andrew Pattenhorst. CDI, we do work with CDI. They were very instrumental in our efforts to get the review and publication of the
Q&A, right?
the Q&A guidance. They've seen an earlier draft, the previous draft of these regulations. I don't know if we shared. No, they saw this draft. The other one. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. But we will be working with them to get the latest draft to them. And actually, we're gonna probably not waste time doing that since there'll be some additional changes, but we will be involved with, or make sure that they're involved in the process of developing these regulations. They've actually given us some really good guidance. And then we are trying to set up regular meetings with them. We do have interactions with them, but trying to get a quarterly basis meeting set up with them. But a lot of priorities from their standpoint, obviously a lot of other insurance issues, and ours as well, but that makes that somewhat of a challenge to get our parties together. But we do have a good interaction and dialogue with the Department of Insurance. I don't know if they were here at the workshop today and just listening in, but yeah, they're a good partner in all of this with us. Any other comments or questions about this package? Okay, we're gonna go back and start work next week on it, looking at some additional changes that based on the comments today. And as Bud said, your comments are on the behalf of thousands, and we hear you loud and clear when we hear these really good comments about our best effort to put a draft regulation package together. So thank you for standing here and sitting here for a good better part of 2.5 hours now, almost 2 hours and 15 minutes. So thank you very much. I want to thank our presenter, Matt, and his not just his presentation, but his answering of the questions. Cesar, thank you for the webcast, our moderator, Ann Fisher, and Zach. Boy, Zach, you 2 laptops. I always remind him other duties as required, and this was one of those situations, I think, where we, yeah, very good. Thanks you for being so flexible, and that was kind of we weren't expecting to have to do that. Yeah, good work. Thank you again for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you. I don't know if there's going to be another workshop. I'll just say right openly, I don't know if we're going to feel like we hit the mark on the next iteration of this, but if we can, or don't feel that way, we'll look to do another workshop in October in conjunction with the advisory group meeting. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll publish a notice with an agenda if we do a workshop. Thank you. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you in October at the next advisory group meeting for sure. Thank you.